What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Malcolm Tibbs. I'm 26 years old right now, and at the age of 24, I was able to retire myself using some of my veteran benefits. I've been doing self-improvement for about 8 years now, and in that time, I've made a ton of mistakes. And by far, the biggest mistake that I was making was feeling as if I needed to hold off on dating. I felt as if I needed to make more money, and I needed to get a better paying job, and I needed a bigger house, all before I could become a successful dater. And it wasn't until I realized that, hey, it wasn't even that I realized this, I just took some time to actually think about it. There are homeless men throughout every single city that I've ever lived in who I can see paired up with women. There are men who are at the very bottom of society, they have no job, they're making no money, they have no car, they're on hard drugs, and they are able to get sex, they're able to get intimacy, they have somebody to touch and somebody to touch them at the end of the night. So it can't be that I need to become more successful in these like very traditional metrics of success in order to get a girlfriend. It must be that I suck at dating. And when I started to look at dating as if it was a skill, that kind of alleviated a lot of the anxiety that was keeping me from getting better at dating. And let me tell you, once you get good at dating, it opens so many doors and it fixes a lot of your problems. When I was in the military, I had a lot of problems just because I felt lonely. I felt like something was wrong with me or that I was broken in some manner because I was in this new environment and I didn't really understand the culture very well, and it was difficult for me to find a girlfriend. So I was almost using a girlfriend as a metric to validate myself. And because I couldn't fulfill that metric, I felt invalid. And after getting outside the military, it became a lot easier for me to navigate a culture that I was familiar with. I got much better at dating and I was able to get a girlfriend. And then I realized, oh, this doesn't make me valid. But what actually started to make me feel more valid was my ability to get a girlfriend. It was my ability to have a relationship, and then, if it were to fall apart within a week, at the most 2 weeks, I could have another relationship that was just as satisfying. When I was able to say that and confidently be able to say, yeah, I can get girls, that is when I started to feel valid. When I could replicate my success. It wasn't as if I never talked to a girl or that I was a virgin while I was in the military. That wasn't true, right? I had relationships before the military. I had relationships in the military, but I could not replicate my success. And it wasn't until I developed the skill of dating and I learned, okay, I need to say this when they say this. I need to not do this when they ask me this question, right? And when I learned all those little nooks and crannies about, really how to present myself as an attractive and suitable mate, right? That is when I started to feel confident, I guess you could say. And it bleeds into everything, right? Knowing that at the end of the night, if you and your girl are having problems, that you could replace her within half a month, it makes it a lot easier to handle those problems. It makes it a lot easier to not just bend over and do whatever she says, and that makes you more attractive in her eyes. And I'm speaking from experience. When you are able to actually have abundance, right? When you have options as a man, it signals to women, this is a suitable man. This is a good man. Like, that's one of the biggest levers of influence that women are looking for when they're looking at men. Do other women want this man? Because if nobody wants you as a man, well, then she's going to feel like she's getting a bad deal when she pairs up with you. And when you're able to signal, I have abundance, when you're able to signal, yeah, I can replace you. Not that I want to replace you, but I could. It drives her crazy. It tells her, oh my gosh, this is one of those men that my girls would be dying to get. Like my girlfriends would be dying to get with too. And like, if I get this man, then they're going to like me even more. I'm going to have more status in my friend group, right? Because at a certain point, you start to realize that as human beings, the way that, let's say, like ants are driven to support the queen or whatever it may be, our bees are driven to support the queen. We are driven by status and we are highly influenced by those around us. And if we can put ourselves in a position to have more influence over the other people around us, we feel better. We tend to feel better when we become closer to the leader position in our tribe. We tend to feel better. Now, with all that being said, if you are a man who is lacking the skill of dating, you don't know how to go out and snap your fingers and have a couple dates lined up by next week, there is a link in the description below. I have a community where I teach other men how to land their first date within 30 days. Also a place for men to swap notes and say, hey, this is working for me. Maybe you guys know something that works better. If that's something you're interested in, check the description down below. Join the community. It's free and it will help you become a more successful dater. Now, there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs. I would really break it down and say there's two areas of game that you can get better at. There's perfecting your practice, which is actually just what behaviors work, okay? And then there's mastering your mind, which is what is stopping me from doing the behaviors, okay? So on one hand, you need to figure out what actually is attractive to a woman. And then on the other hand, you need to figure out, well, why am I not doing those things? Chances are you probably already know quite a bit of what is attractive, right? You've probably seen enough movies and you've seen enough people get girlfriends in school and you've seen like dudes glow up. You probably have a really good idea of what makes a man attractive, right? The issue is what I found for myself and what it seems to be for a lot of men is that they feel as if those behaviors are inaccessible to them in particular. And they'll come up with a lot of really good excuses. Like I was saying earlier, they'll feel like they need to make more money or they need to get a bigger house or, they need to get a better paying job. And they'll say all these things they'll almost say all these things to cover up the evidence of men who are inferior to them in those aspects who are still able to get girlfriends, right? The homeless man, for example, they'll say I need to get a better paying job while driving past a homeless man coupled up with a woman, and you need to understand that a lot of this mastering your mind, a lot of this getting to the point where you're able to just do the behaviors, it's an anxiety thing. Okay. You have this anxiety about what it means to be attractive, what it means to be responsible for a woman. That's a really big one. If I actually go up and I get the girl's phone number and I take her out on a date and I have sex with her, that means I'm going to be kind of responsible for her feelings, and that's a little bit scary, at least the first handful of times, until you get to the point where you can say, I'm not afraid to be responsible for you. I'm not afraid to have sex with you. I'm not worried if I don't have sex with you, All of that comes from mastering your mind. And from my experience, it just takes experience, right? Getting over these ideas, these self-limiting beliefs, right? These like fundamental facts of the universe that you think are true, despite all the evidence and all the other people who are constantly proving these ideas wrong. Getting over them just requires you to get more experience out on the field, get more data, right? And as you get more data, you're able to construct a more accurate model of what is true. And what you'll see is that what's true for you might be different than what's true for me, just simply because of my body, my accent, the amount of money I make, right? What I need to do in order to get a woman attracted to me is maybe very different from what you need to do. But at the end of the day, there is not a single man out there who is lacking the ability to attract a woman because you have the parts necessary. Like you were born with the correct set of like chromosomes, like XY, and that's really all that you need to get a woman attracted to you, right? You just have to have a dick and balls. Like you need to understand that the same way that pussy has power, your dick has power. And you don't need a whole lot else. You just need to be able to market the power of your dick. And I know that that's a little cringe to say it like that, but that's really all that it comes down to. You need to be able to display, I can fuck the shit out of you and I can give you a good time in the sack. And that's it. Once you figure out how to convey that message and you can make a woman feel comfortable around you, which only takes at most like 4 to 6 hours. And honestly, like you can pull it off within like less than 50 text messages as well. Once you get a woman to feel comfortable and once you are able to assure her that having sex with you is going to be a good thing for her, well then yeah, she's going to want to have sex with you. Right? But you need to understand that by default, you're already good enough. Like outside of the box, you're sufficient, right? You're not lacking in anything besides experience. And if you go out and get that experience, once you master your mind, and as you master your mind, you're naturally going to start to perfect your practice and you're going to get better at spitting game, at getting women to come over to your condo, at setting up the dates, at making dating profiles, what pictures are going to be seductive versus, you're just going to get a feel for it. But this video is already kind of running on. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend. Again, if you want to be able to land your first date within 30 days and get over some of these self-limiting beliefs that you have, check the description down below. Join the community. It's free. There's other young men. We're sharing notes. We're teaching each other. So if that's something you're interested in, links in the description. That's all I got for you guys.